welcome to Economics Unbound. Tonight we talk about Africa's platinum-rich kingdom, the Royal Bafokeng Nation, against the backdrop of the passing of its Queen Mother, Semane Molotlege. Seated on the throne in Bafokeng, on the outskirts of the northwest province's town of Rustenburg, is the Platinum King, a leader of one of the most important and significant platinum deposits in the world.
The story of the Royal Bafokeng Nation is intertwined with some of the most underdocumented and significant tracts of South African economic history. The story of the Royal Bafokeng Nation is as old as the hills, as it predates the discovery of the platinum-rich Morenski Reef in the northwestern parts of South Africa. The Bafokeng are Tswana-speaking people who are related by blood and history to both the Batlaping Diamond Kingdom and the Barolong, once rich diamond kingdoms.
In Bafokeng history, diamonds loom large. King Mokgatle the Great, the real game changer in the material fortunes of the Bafokeng people, was a wily and wise king who ruled the Bafokeng nation between the years 1834 to 1891. He made three crucial economic leadership decisions that set the nation apart from other dispossessed African people for generations.
First, he decided to establish a tribal treasury. Secondly, he decided that all Bafokeng men would subject themselves to the humiliation and degradation of the black laborers on diamond fields, and they would contribute a quarter of their wages earned in Kimberley to the tribal treasury that he had established. They were also to contribute guns to his store of ammunition.
King Mokgatle then decided to supply the diamond fields with timber from Bafokeng lands. With all the proceeds from labor, the timber business, and leasing of land for farming, he began a buying spree, buying up large tracts of land in the northwest. This land he held on behalf of the Bafokeng people, and they held it by legal tenure and not just traditional tenure. In the late 1940s, vast deposits of platinum were discovered on Mokgatle's lands. Back then, during Mokgatle's reign, in the 1800s, he decided to send a delegation to Durban, where he had heard a grouping of Lutheran priests had docked at the port. Mokgatle decided to control the process of colonization and the Christianization of his people by inviting the missionaries of his own choosing. It was under the administration and cassocks of these chosen priests that the Bafokeng hid aside their national wealth until South Africa burst into democracy. Then they could finally, after much litigation, harvest the fruits of their vast platinum empire and lands.
Today, the monarchy covers 1,000 square kilometers in the northwest province of South Africa. The capital is Bafokeng, near Rustenburg. The Bafokeng is used to refer to both the tribal grouping as well as the land its members inhabit. The kingdom's current ruler is Kgosi Leruo Molotlege, who has reigned since 2000. The Bafokeng first settled in the Rustenburg Valley in 1450 AD, the presence of the ceramics in the area suggesting the arrival of the Bafokeng in the Rustenburg Valley at about this time. Kgosi Tsokodu became the first king of a unified Bafokeng in 1750.
Today, Africa's richest kingdom has made innovative use of the funds. After fighting for years in various court battles to secure their legacy and their birthright, especially during African years, they have been able to unfold a multi-year strategy.
So, the legend tells us that the Royal Bafokeng Nation has funneled money it's earned from its Royal Bafokeng Platinum Company into a mini-sovereign wealth fund that provides cash for schools, clinics and infrastructure. The late Queen Mother Semane Molotlege is renowned in Bafokeng and beyond for her dedication to these projects and the prosperity of their beneficiaries. The capital, Bafokeng, stands out as a beacon of success amid the poverty, squalor, and political and economic strife of the Platinum Belt, where sprawling tin hut shanty towns sit along billion-dollar mines digging out the precious metals.
So after those protracted legal battles and after swapping royalties for equity, the Bafokeng could settle down into their multi-year plan, which is a long-term strategic vision to turn Bafokeng into an emirate-like domain powered by its platinum-rich sovereign wealth fund. So through strategic investments around the world and community development and education, the kingdom is poised to contribute substantially to the regional economy, which is booming, as well as to the national economy. Now, platinum has over 400 commercial applications, and platinum group metals have enjoyed a bullish run over the past decades. Our producer, Prudence Babazile Makubalo, has more.
Platinum, palladium, rhodium, iridium, and ruthenium are known as the platinum group elements or metals, also known as PGE or PGM. So these metals are distinguished by their superior conductivity and ductility resistance to oxidation and corrosion, their strength and durability, strong involving properties, and high melting points. So these unique properties have been the reason for PGEs being called the designated noble metals on the periodic table of elements. Platinum and palladium have the greatest economic importance and are found in the largest quantities. The other four are produced as the byproducts of platinum and palladium mining. They are amongst the least abundant of the Earth's element. So the biggest use for platinum and palladium is in the catalytic converter used in automobiles to reduce the pollutants of exhaust gases. So platinum is used to produce the emissions in the diesel-powered vehicles, whereas palladium is used more in gasoline-powered cars. So platinum and palladium are also used in oil refining, glass making, medical instruments, electronics, jewelry, and many other applications. So Rustenburg's recent history has been closely linked with platinum. So although platinum had been discovered in the early 1900s, it was only in 1925 that platinum mining in the district became financially viable when sufficient deposits were discovered. So Rustenburg profited immensely from South Africa's rising platinum output between 1994 and 2009, which grew by 67% over that period. So before 2012 strikes, Rustenburg had been the third fastest growing economy out of the 8 metropolitan municipalities in South Africa, outpaced only by Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni. In 2012, Rustenburg contributed about 4.9% of South Africa's gross domestic product. The role of mining in South Africa expects mining companies to increase their operations and wider socio-economic benefits. So this high-level analysis provides a fresh outlook on the impact on the main platinum mining houses. Operations in the Rustenburg area aims to contribute to existing debate on the role of mining, corporate sustainability, and living conditions of mining communities in South Africa. The quantitative data used in this report is primarily sourced from the 2011 consensus, the South African Department of Statistics, and public company reports.
Welcome back. The Royal Bafokeng Nation's Queen Mother, Semane Molotlegi, has been praised for her instrumental role in pioneering infrastructure development at Bafokeng village outside Rustenburg in the Northwest Province. With billions of rand in royalties earned from the platinum mines and operations, and operating on their lands, Bafokeng has been transformed into one of the most developed traditional communities in Africa. Our reporter Bafedile Mwerane and video journalist Rejoice Moses compiled the following report.
The Royal Bafokeng Nation is regarded as one of the wealthiest traditional communities in Africa. The Bafokeng Nation settled in this land in the north of Rustenburg from the end of 17th century. Their story is traced back to the foresight of Kgosi Mokgatle, who ruled the nation from 1834 to 1891. Kgosi Mokgatle, a visionary leader, sent out a contingent of men to Kimberley to work the diamond fields. The motive was to raise funds to buy the land now known as Bafokeng. In 1921, platinum was discovered on the land. The journey, which was always honored by the late Bafokeng Queen Mother, Semane Molotlegi. Those who worked closely with her are always reminded of the struggle encountered in purchasing this platinum-rich land.
Lela Kimberley.
She says we went to Kimberley with her. She was the first person to take us there. We were going to lay wreaths in honor of our forefathers. Another trip we went to Beijing in 1995. We left Bafokeng and we arrived in Hong Kong, and we were shown where our diamonds from this land are refined.
Hong Kong.
Fast forward to the 21st century. Bafokeng is far cry from a century ago. It is a transformed village, all due to mining royalties paid by mining houses operating on Bafokeng land. They are the first traditional community to own a mining operation. The Royal Bafokeng Sport Palace occupies the pride of place in their hearts. The community has invested on tourism services, including this flourishing shopping center, amongst others. Memogolo, as the Queen Mother is affectionately known, played no small role in local developments.
She looked after orphans. She educated the young and the adults alike. She provided health care. She provided better living conditions to the indigent. The best way to pay tribute to Memogolo is not to let her projects like Tutatebe and others die.
These are but a few developmental projects which have put Bafokeng on the world map as one of the richest communities on the continent. The Queen Mother was not only a part of Bafokeng developments, but played a leading role in their achievements. You could say all this is due to a Queen's gambit. Bafetile Moerane, SABC News, Bafokeng, near Rustenburg.
Since the passing of Semane Molotlegi, our SABC News reporter Bafedile Moerane has been spending some time, several days in fact, in the community speaking to various community leaders and others. Good evening. How are you, Buffy? Bafedile,
good evening to you, Tandega, and also to the viewers. I'm doing great. I can hear you, Tandega. Good evening.
Bafedile, many people have been speaking about the history of the kingdom in the light of the passing of one of its leading lights, Memogolo Semane Molotlegi. What is it that makes this kingdom so unique and so distinct from other communities?
Tandega, looking back where this community comes from, as you heard there during the package there, this nation, it has a relation with Kimberley Big Hole in the Northern Cape. That's where Kgosi Mokgatle, who ruled the nation in the 17th century there, had sent a group of men to work there with the motive of raising funds to purchase this land here in Bafokeng in the north of Rustenburg. So many people are saying that Memogolo played a very big role in sustaining the legacy that Mokgatle has left for this rich nation. It is one of the richest, wealthiest traditional communities in Africa. There are quite a number of developments in this area. Amongst others, they have invested in the tourism sector, as they have one of the beautiful resorts here, which is Marang Hotel, just here in Bafokeng, on your way towards Sun City. They've also have a Royal Bafokeng Sport Palace. It's a stadium that was one of the stadiums that was used during the 2010 World Cup. Amongst others, they have developed the roads. They have a school here, Lebone, the second, which is a private school. And as many people have described here, she's one person who actually loved education and encouraged her nation to be educated.
Now, Memogolo actually came from Botswana, from the Bamangwato kingdom, and she was the daughter of one of the great leaders of Botswana, Chief Tsekedi Khama, and she's therefore related to the president, the former president of Botswana, the two Khamas who were former presidents, Seretse Khama and Ian Khama. Now, they also have a history of marrying diamonds and dealing in very interesting ways with companies. So the kingdom almost marries a company, and they find ways of moving into the future together. What role do you think that her influence and her experience of what happened across the border in Botswana played in the Bafokeng story?
Yes, indeed. According to most of the people, the speakers here at the memorial service, many people remember her actually at the time when she led the nation, when her late husband, Edward Molotlehi, went to exile in Botswana. Indeed, yes, somehow where she comes from, as she's from the royal family also in Botswana, they played a very big role in ensuring, in enhancing the riches that Bafokeng are having. So Memogolo is one of the great leaders. As you heard, the president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, when sending the message of condolence to the royal family, describing her as a philanthropist and also one of the people who played a very big role in nation building, in particular fighting for the children's rights and also fighting for women's rights. Many people were saying that she's one of the people who took, she's the first woman actually to take the women from Bafokeng Nation to the United Nations Conference. Somehow, yes, indeed, Tandeka, she used her role from the royal family in Botswana and coming here, being married to the royal family here at the Bafokeng Nation.
Now, Memogolo's life was far from comfortable and easy. She endured detention without trial, numerous years of harassment, and so on. How have the people been reflecting upon this period? I saw that our team spoke to the Lutheran priests who are still operating in the community there. What are people saying, and what are the Lutherans saying?
They're actually praising her for that. They're saying that she stood her grounds. Nothing shaked her. Remember, at the time of Buputatswana, she was here, as I indicated, leading the nation while his husband was in exile in Botswana. Many people are saying that this is the great leader. We have lost a mother. We have lost the nation builder. She's one person who left us united. She always encouraged unity amongst the nation. So many are saying that they wish that the royal family, including the now King Kgosi Leruo, could actually take a lead and follow the footsteps of the late mother.
Thank you very much, Bafi, for joining us from Bafokeng. A very good evening to you. Let's listen to more about this in a package about the Royal Bafokeng. Now let's delve a bit into their history.
The Royal Bafokeng Nation, regarded as one of the richest communities in Africa. The area lies on top of one of the biggest platinum ore reserves in the world. The Bafokeng have a 300,000 strong population. The monarchy is spread across 29 villages, spanning 1,200 square kilometers of land. It is the relationship between former Transvaal President Paul Kruger and one of the most influential leaders in Bafokeng history, Kgosi Mokgatle, who reigned between 1834 and 1891, that made it possible for the Bafokeng to own land. Kgosi Mokgatle's decision to purchase the land was in response to the possible threat posed by colonial settlers who wanted to forcibly occupy the Bafokeng land. Little did the Bafokeng know then about the mineral riches beneath their land. In 1924, platinum deposits were discovered on Bafokeng land. This would change their fate forever. Fast forward to the 21st century, infrastructure development took the lead. All thanks to mine royalties paid by different mining houses operating on Bafokeng land, as well as money accrued from their shares. As a result, they now own their own platinum mine. One of the Bafokeng's pride and joy, the Royal Bafokeng Sports Palace, a 43,000-seater stadium. It was built to encourage the local youth to take part in international sport. Huge investments have also been made on healthcare services. The community boasts 7 clinics, a healthcare center with emergency medical response services. The Bafokeng remain culture-orientated with a hereditary leadership tradition. They have 72 wards, which cover their 29 villages. The traditional headmen, known as the Khosana, are responsible for Makgotla where local issues are raised. Kgosi Leruo Molutlegi is the current king of the Bafokeng nation and the 36th direct descendant of the royal Bafokeng family. While Kgosi Leruo is the supreme head of the Bafokeng, he cannot make unilateral decisions. He must act within the consensus of the Supreme Council. Today, the Bafokeng regard themselves as a forward-thinking nation. The nation recently signed a memorandum of understanding with the Rustenburg municipality in a bid to enhance quality service delivery. It is a story of visionary leadership which put the people's needs and development first.
Now on Skype, I am joined by the political analyst, Professor Somadoda Figeni. Good evening, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. And how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Somadoda, can we please discuss the issue of the kind of leadership that was so far-sighted that it changed the economic trajectory of a nation for many generations to come? It was a leadership that had an economic strategy, a social strategy, as well as a political strategy. And can you contrast it to the types of leadership that we have today?
Let me first convey my condolences to the passing of the Queen Mother of the Royal Bafokeng Nation, and then move straight to your question to say the Royal Bafokeng and the Bafokeng Nation actually present a very unique, extraordinary case of a nation that quickly understood with the intrusion of colonialism and the fact that now the title deeds were being used. Understanding the value of land, they decided that they were going to acquire that land, and they understood the importance and the endowment of land for future investments. And not only that, once there was a discovery of these massive reserves of platinum, they took interest not in just selling, which is what you normally find with many traditional authorities, but they took interest in having a trust. They took interest in even exploring possibilities of having a mine, and they do have flagship programs. So it's one of the most enterprising and innovative nations which understood the value of land as well as the value of commercializing that land to maximum benefit, and also combining that with some of the philanthropic programs.
Now, the real game changer was Kgosi Mokgatle, who ruled or reigned over the Bafokeng in the mid-1800s. Now, he had seen fellow and related kings in the Batlapeng area who had lost the diamond fields in the Keat Award. And he had also seen them wage a rebellion called the Tswana Rebellion against the colonizing forces and against the English to secure the diamond fields. And then he learned from that land and minerals may go together, and that you should secure the land by legal tenure first rather than just rely on traditional tenure, because the Bafokeng had been in that area for centuries. What do you think about this kind of foresight, this kind of strategic approach to leadership that rules in the interest of the collective rather than self-interest?
Well, generally, that is what used to be the case with traditional authorities before the greed and personalization of wealth, and also sometimes very autocratic means where a person isolates himself and say, this is my land, instead of understanding and appreciating that a traditional ruler holds the land on behalf of the people as a trustee, and he is first amongst the equals. And that foresight is actually another case which demonstrates how Africans were able to adjust into modernizing economy under the colonial conditions and even understand the value of land. If you look at the book, The Rise and Fall of the South African Peasantry, or The Seed is Mine by Casmain, and many other historical accounts, they do show that many Africans responded to commercialization of agriculture, urbanization, mining, and everything else, and they excelled in that space.
Yes.
But very active legal processes disturbed that particular process.
In the late 1800s, throughout Natal, the Eastern Cape, and some tracts of the Northwest were very successful African commercial farmers, and that was arrested by the Glen Grey Act. But here's the problem with modern policy making and legislation in South Africa. Many people lost their land during that long century of dispossession in the 1800s. But when we burst into democracy, we decided that those who had lost their land in the 1800s must just sleep on their wounds or lala ngenxeba, rather than recognizing their land rights from that period. We said, if you were dispossessed as a result of the 1913 Land Act, so we made 1913 the mark, you have a case, but if you were dispossessed prior to 1913, you have no case. Was this one of the really punishing results of our negotiated settlement?
It is one of those instances where you could say that people were generally shortchanged, but at the same time, it is a reflection of the lack of depth of understanding of history, because much of dispossession took place during the 19th century, especially toward the second half of the 19th century. That's where history ought to have gone into that particular space. And by simply making it the cutoff period using 1913, it then meant that many communities would be left outside. But another very important point that we ought to be debating is whether restitution or simply redistribution would make things faster. There are people who have a historical claim and some heritage attached to a particular piece of land. But the research processes and legal processes leading to that have taken a disproportionate amount of time, and those who do not have resources are not able to claim that. But a redistribution based on needs might also move faster to make sure that land and wealth are connected.
And how do you think we can resolve the issue of having this huge backlog of cases and land claims at the Land Claims Court? There are years and years of backlog there.
Well, I do think that some resources should be put aside, because to leave some of these battles to be fought by communities, some of them poor, without research and without all the technical requirements and legal fees to take the cases forward, then you'll forever have a backlog that takes even a century. But if, as I was saying, understanding the general history of how things were, people were simply to be allocated land on the basis of just redistribution due to collective dispossession that took place, rather than one specific community after the other. Of course, that would have to be balanced with some communities having spiritual attachment, graves and other things to certain pieces of land.
Well, thank you for joining us and discussing the vexed land issue and joining us as we discuss the Royal Bafokeng Nation and the legacy of Semane Molotlege. Now let's take a short break. Welcome back to Economics Unbound. On Skype, we have David van Wyk from the Benchmark Foundation. Welcome, David. David, what can mining communities learn from the history and the example of the Bafokeng, and what shouldn't they learn?
Well, I think first and foremost, the Bafokeng Nation was path-breaking in securing shareholding in the major mining companies, Impala Platinum and Anglo Platinum and so on, in the area where these companies mined on their land. And that would have stood the tribe in to great benefit. I think that the problem areas for the Bafokeng Nation and for the communities is that there has been a focus on infrastructure development, but it tended to be prestige development. You know, you look at the stadium, you look at the shopping mall, you look at the administrative buildings and the high school and so on. But you have a community with 40% unemployment because migrant labor is still the dominant form of work on the mines in that particular area. So a lot of workers come from other parts, from Mozambique, from Lesotho, from the Eastern Cape and so on. And there's massive youth unemployment in Phokeng, in the area of the Bafokeng. The other thing is that with electricity supply, we still have in excess of 70% of households that use candles in that particular area. So what I mean is that if the focus was more on upliftment rather than prestige projects, then these things could have been...
So you mean developmental infrastructure like better access to electricity, better roads, better...
yeah, you know, more than 90% of people still have pit latrines. Yes. You know, so these things are problematic because a lot of these things occur within a very short space from the stadium that was built for the World Cup, you know, and the stadium is an absolutely beautiful stadium. It's very attractive and so on, and the training facilities for football and so on is very attractive and so on. But there needs to be investment in the ordinary people in those communities and villages that are supposedly having shareholding in the mining company. If we look at the shareholding structure of the Royal Bafokeng Holdings, the tribe actually has 40% of that shareholding, and then the rest is listed on the stock exchange. A number of Alan Gray and others have got shares in that particular mining company. You know, so when one lists on the stock exchange, it's very difficult for ordinary people in Phokeng to actually become shareholders in a company which is proclaimed to be a company that is operating in their name. And there are some land disputes and so on also ongoing in that particular area. The Bafokeng Land Buyers Association and so on are disputing some of the land claims and other issues.
Now, when you consider the example of the Bafokeng, where does municipal obligation begin for eradicating pit latrines, providing water, ablution facilities, and so on? And where does the Hossi's obligation begin and end?
Well, I think that this is a very important question that you are asking. I worked for the provincial government in Popo Molefe's office there for 10 years. And there was always this tension between the Royal Bafokeng Nation and the provincial authority, for example. And of course, then there's the issue of the democratically elected local government in the area as well. And we know that there has been some corruption and so on in the past in that local authority with regard to funds that went to the local authority for social and labor plans and so on. We know in the run-up to the Marikana massacre and so on that it became apparent that a lot of the funds that mining companies have paid to the local authority have simply disappeared at that time. So I think that we also have the issue of the D account, where a lot of the royalties that went from the mining companies went into the so-called D account of the provincial government, and a lot of that money also simply disappeared as well. So unfortunately, we are sitting with a situation in South Africa where we as public servants at the time and currently public servants are there to serve the people and not to enrich themselves at the cost of the people. So as far as the Kgosi and the Dikhosana and the royalty are concerned, I think that they also need to look at their subjects and the needs of their subjects and do proper needs analysis of what is required in those communities to assist those communities to overcome the kind of problems that I refer to. I don't think that communities can wait for local government and local and provincial government structures to come to their assistance, given the current situations that we have in this country with issues of corruption and so on.
Now, can you tell me whether you think that the Royal Bafokeng Nation and its investment arm could have the kind of influence, since they have equity in these significant mining companies, could have the kind of leverage that would secure employment for many of its people, the people in the nation who remain unemployed?
Well, I think that that's a very important question once again, because the migrant labor system is an insane holdover from apartheid. You have the Eastern Cape, which cannot develop because all its workers are sitting in the Northwest, and you have the Northwest, which cannot provide employment because all the jobs in the mines have been taken by people from other provinces and other countries. So it creates an imbalance both in the Eastern Cape and in the Northwest province, this particular situation. Now, I think the Bafokeng Nation is in a position to exert power, but I think that position has significantly weakened since the financial crash of 2009 and the collapse of platinum on global markets, which in 2008 had reached levels of $2,000 US an ounce, but fell back to $700 US an ounce, and is currently struggling to get back even to $1,000 an ounce.
So the nation's fortunes are very vulnerable, including their sovereign wealth fund, to the fluctuations in the global price of platinum.
Yes, exactly. It is very much subject to fluctuations in the global price. It is also subject to the overproduction of platinum by mining companies in South Africa. So what you are having is mountains of stockpiles of platinum in Switzerland, and Switzerland is the biggest exporter of platinum in the world, but it doesn't have a single platinum mine. And that's all South Africa's platinum that is lying there in those mountains. And of course, it's the mining companies who sell at below global market value to themselves at tax havens, and then they resell it on the global market at global prices, and when they can't get those prices, they stockpile the mineral.
And of course, the Russians as well are stockpiling.
Yes, I think that this is a problem. The problem of stockpiling of minerals is a real issue. It's interesting. In 1948, the old South African government of General Smuts, just before the election, actually had an agreement with the Russians to have a monopolistic arrangement around the supply of platinum to global markets. We have more than 80% of the world's platinum in South Africa. We are in a position actually to be a price maker instead of a price taker.
And but to own the entire value chain in an OPEC-like structure.
that in that type of structure. And this is maybe what the Bafokeng Nation should be aiming for. They should be aiming to exert more power over that international market and over the prices and so on that they can obtain for the platinum that they are mining. The shift from combustion engines to electric cars has also hit the platinum industry very badly, because fewer and fewer car companies are buying platinum for catalyzers now as they change over to electric vehicles.
Well, David, we'll talk to you again as we look at the fortunes and the history of the Bafokeng Nation. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much.
Now let's take a short break. Welcome back. You're watching Economics Unbound. Now, in the 1960s, 27,000 acres of land, predominantly owned by the Bafokeng tribe, now known as the Royal Bafokeng Nation, were signed over to form the Impala Platinum Mining Company. Kgaluka is one of the 29 villages that make up the Royal Bafokeng Nation. Joining me on Skype is Eric Mukua. He's one of the community activists of Kgaluka village. Welcome, Eric. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening to you, Tandega, and good evening to your viewers. Thank you very much for
Well, we'd like to offer our condolences to you as a community on the passing of Me Semane Molotlehi. Now, what is the aim of your community grouping, and what are you forecasting for the future of the Bafokeng Nation? How would you like to improve circumstances and lives?
Well, I think your question really asked me about our grouping, what we are aiming at.
Yes.
Ours has been to challenge the gaps, because the narrative that there is a development that really benefit all, it's out there. But I must say that that's not entirely true. We still experience poverty in the land that we are staying in. I mean, in this time of COVID, you still have villages that do not have frequent supply of water, and that's a problem. And my grouping has challenged many a times that the institutions of the Bafokeng should submit themselves for public scrutiny, meaning that the Auditor General should come and audit their books, because according to us, there are some suspicious transactions that we feel that they deserve such investigation. And we have done this. And the Auditor General responded to us, and he said two things. I'm just going to say two things.
You're referring to the late Kimi Makwetu?
Yes, the late Kimi Makwetu. May his soul rest in peace. One of the things he said he has the authority to audit even the traditional councils, communities. But the Bafokeng has not come forth to send their own financial statements for audit. And he also said that Bafokeng have history of not being transparent. Now, we're moving from there, that you really are not going to get the information, that will, in a sense, present the Bafokeng in a bad light. Meaning, if public institutions are to benefit people for development, they must be up for public scrutiny. Now, the challenge is out, because the system of the Bafokeng will continue to exist. The challenge is out for them. If they really would like to preserve their credibility as they are, can they submit themselves for public scrutiny, especially with regard to finance?
Eric, beyond the call for transparency and better governance that you are calling for, what kind of policy mix do you think that the nation would benefit from?
Let me tell you, there is one thing. I've been quite involved in trying to understand the developmental role, the traditional leadership system. Of course, which I would not take away some of the the role they play and the successes. But I guess the system itself is limited. I don't think in the long run the traditional system would be able to sustain the developments, or can it sustain its custodianship of development? One reason is that within the very same area of Bafokeng, there is a resistance to accept civil society outside of their own structures, traditional structures, to engage. And the mining companies in that area, the RB Plats, have adopted that attitude of not wanting to engage civil society or people outside the traditional system. And we know the impact of mining goes beyond that. So it's a challenge in a real sense. So I'm making an argument to say, whilst now the traditional system have a role to play in as far as development is concerned, but in the long run, given its limitation, it really would not carry that role.
Well, Eric, thank you for joining us to discuss these tensions between modernity and the old traditional system. And thank you very much for raising those issues with us, as well as the issues of community development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you to your viewers.
Thank you. That's how we come to the end of the show for this evening. Thanks for joining us on Economics Unbound. Good night.